1983, March of 1983, I never grow tired of telling this. Joni and I had been married 6 months. We went to the Holy Land for the first time. And while on the Mount of Olives, God spoke to me and said, go to the city of Montgomery and build a Christian television station. 2 other groups had made noble efforts to try to build it, but they hadn't been able to. So the people of Montgomery were burnt out on the idea of a Christian TV station. And their attitude, Al Wood, was basically, we'll believe it when we see it. We're not going to help you. We're not going to give you any money. Now, a few people did. But generally speaking, until you get us a Christian TV station on there, we're not going to support you. So Joni and I had been in Montgomery for a while. We finally, it took almost 2 years, but we finally get the TV station on the air. And after we've been on the air for a few years, our doorbell rang in the middle of the day, in the middle of the week, and I go to the door, and there's a man in a business suit and a woman dressed in business attire. I didn't know who they were. I didn't know they were coming. I didn't know why they were there. And they were from the Alabama Department of Revenue. Now, if you don't know what that is the Alabama version of the IRS. I don't know about South Carolina because I can't remember, but do y'all have a state income tax in South Carolina? Does North Carolina have a state income tax? Well, see, the state of Texas, I started to say y'all should move to Texas, but Pastor Rick wouldn't like that. Well, he could come move too. We don't have a state income tax in Texas. Well, these 2 were revenue agents. They were coming to check out little Marcus and Joni Lamb. They wanted to see where we lived, how nice it was. They wanted to see that. Well, let me just tell you what, the house that we had there was less than $200,000. So I don't even think that's worthy for any newspaper reporters to talk about, do you? A few weeks later, I received a certified letter in the mail. And they said, we are auditing you for the last 5 years that you've been in the state of Alabama. And you are hereby commanded to come to our offices at such and such a time. Failure to act on this notice could result in you being arrested and thrown in jail. So I had been the one to do our income taxes all those years, and I still do, personally. H.R. Block doesn't do it. The little Lamb of God does mine and Joni's. And I had kept, Joni gets embarrassed about this, but each year I had a brown paper bag, and I'd write the year of the taxes, and I had all of my our receipts and the copies of the tax forms. So I had to get 5 of these brown paper bags. Everybody say brown paper bags. Brown paper bags are not just to put liquor in there. Now, I don't do that. I don't drink, and I'm not against people that do, but I don't drink anything but water and Dr. Peppers. But anyway, I had 5 of these what? Brown paper bags. And I had an automobile. Now, this should make the Charlotte Observer. I mean, this is probably the most expensive, fabulous, opulent car that any preacher has ever owned. It was a Datsun. Have you ever heard of a Datsun? That was the name they used to call Nissan. And my Datsun cost $400,000. Everybody say 400. Now my Datsun had a big hole in the floorboard in the front. Anybody remember the glass bottom boats in Florida? Heard about them? I mean, you can get on those glass bottom boats and see right through the floorboard and see all the little fishes swimming around. Well, they didn't have anything on me. While I'm driving down the road, I could see the road right underneath me. And my $400 Datsun with a hole in the floorboard even caught on fire one time. So here I go with my 5 what? Brown paper bags. And I'm riding in what kind of chariot? A Datsun. And what did I have in the floorboard? A hole. It was a holy Datsun. And how much did it cost? $400. 4 Benjamins. So I've got my 5 bags and I'm headed to the Alabama Department of Revenue, and all of a sudden, when I'm only about 3 or 4 miles away, that Datsun died right in the middle of the road. Well, we didn't have cell phones back then, and even if they had them, I couldn't have afforded one, probably at that point. And I saw this dear, sweet little old lady who had been mine and Joni's friend, had been one of the few people that had supported us financially before we got on the air. She's still alive, dear, sweet, we would call her Sister Kathleen Turner. And she was driving by, and I thought, what should I do? You know, I could get her to help me, and she maybe could take me to get help with my car or take me to the tax office, but it's pretty embarrassing if she sees my Datsun and it's dead. And it's pretty embarrassing if she sees these 5 brown paper bag grocery store bags. They don't even hardly do those anymore. They just got the plastic, don't they? So I thought, I'm pushing my pride aside. I don't want to get arrested, because if I don't make my appointment, they could be coming after me. And then I'd have a jail ministry instead of Christian television. So I waved her down. Sister Turner, my car's broke down. Would you please take me? I got to go. I got an appointment to the Alabama tax people. And I got there. Finally, she dropped me off. And for several hours, they interrogated me. I didn't have anything to hide. And then a few weeks later, another certified letter. And they said, we are disallowing virtually every deduction that you put on those 5 years of tax returns. And then a few more months later, when Joni and I we had our house sold, we needed to sell the house so we could move to Dallas because God had called us to Dallas. And if we hadn't built the Dallas station, there never would have been a Daystar. I get this certified letter that they have put a tax lien on the sale of our house. Now, back then, I didn't know as much about business as I do now, and I still don't know everything, but I know more now than I used to. I didn't know really what that was going to do. I thought, will that keep the sale from going through? Will that make the buyers suspicious and want to back out? Maybe their bank won't want to loan the money if they think there's some kind of legal problems. And I knew our dream was in front of us. Our destiny was in front of us to go to Dallas. And it looked like our dream had just had a stake driven either through the heart or through our back. And worse than that, maybe one of the worst moments, probably the worst moment in my life up until then, is I was going to have to go in there and tell Joni. And I thought, what is she going to think? Is she going to think either I lied or cheated on our taxes? Or at best, that I was inadequate and incompetent? And when I went in there to tell her, it was one of the most difficult things I'd ever had to do. But Joni was so supportive. She was not accusatory. And she just said, I love you, I believe you, I trust you. And so the closing went through. I couldn't hardly sleep all night long, not knowing what was going to happen the next day. But the closing went through, except that the Alabama Department of Revenue got $20-something thousand, and Marcus and Joni didn't get anything. So we moved to Dallas, and all we could afford was to rent a 2-bedroom apartment. And Jonathan was was he about 6 at the time, Joni? He was 5. And our little Rachel, the blonde, was 9 months old. So they had to stay in one bedroom of the apartment, and Joni and I in another bedroom, because that's all we could afford, because the government had gotten all of our money. Well, while we were there, while we were in Montgomery, we had bought a building. It was called the Lamplighter Dinner Theater, also called the Candlelight Dinner Theater. It was right there on Interstate 85. And we bought it from this very wealthy doctor who did medical research for drug companies. Dr. Henry Fraser. He may be watching. I hope he is. He was very kind to Joni and me. We didn't have any money, so he seller financed. And he used a CPA firm by the name of Barranco and Billingsley. And Bill Barranco was the named partner and the founder of the firm, and he was Catholic. And so we would make our payments every month, and probably didn't always make every one of them on time, but did the best we could. And so when we got in trouble with the Alabama Department of Revenue, the Lord said, go see Mr. Barranco and see if he'll help you. And we'd built up some credibility with him because he had watched us on TV in Montgomery. He had seen our struggle and seen our efforts to make those payments. And so he took our case, and we're now in Dallas. He's there in Alabama. It cost us several $1,000s. And finally one day, Bill Barranco said, he called me on the phone. He said, Reverend, I'm not going to charge you any more money, no matter how long this case goes on. And he said, I've made an appointment to go see Mr. Sizemore, who is the commissioner of the Alabama Revenue Authority in this state. And I'm going to march into his office, and I'm going to say, my clients, Marcus and Joni Lamb, are innocent. And I've reviewed all 5 years of their tax returns, and there's not one thing they've done on there that's wrong. And furthermore, that my firm and I, if we have to take this to the Supreme Court of the state of Alabama, we're going to do this. We're going to fight you, and we're going to go to the news, and we're going to tell them that this is simply religious prejudice because our clients were on Christian television, and some of your agents decided that they were going to go after them and try to make an example. It went on for over 2.5 years. And one day, I get a letter in the mail. It was another certified letter from the Alabama Department of Revenue. But in that letter, there were 5 checks. One for 1985, 1986, 1987, 1988, and 1989. And they said, we have decided that you are 100% correct. We are allowing every deduction that you made. We're refunding all of your money. And since we've had your money for 2.5 years, we're giving you interest on all of the money. God will help you overcome your trouble.